Florida is pushing a law to make it illegal to make white people uncomfortable. Yeah, as a matter of fact, it's being pushed by the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis. This is really the most predictable bill of 2022. So let me give you some background to what they're trying to do. A bill being pushed by the governor of Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis, that would prohibit public schools and private businesses from making white people feel discomfort when they teach students or train employees about discrimination. In the nation's past, received its first approval on Tuesday. This is making it through the ranks of legislation, okay? The Senate Education Committee approved the bill that aims at critical race theory, though it does not mention it explicitly, as I've mentioned many times before. It never mentions critical race theory because that's not what it's banning. This fell obviously on party lines, with Republicans in favor of this ridiculous legislation and Democrats opposed. Democrats argued the bill is not needed, would lead to frivolous lawsuits, and said it would amount to censorship in schools. They asked, without success, for a real life example of teachers or businesses telling students or employees that they are racist because of their race. So literally, during the debate about this ridiculous bill that would make it against the law to make white people uncomfortable, in the debate about the bill, Democrats said, well, okay, since you're so passionate about this new bill and you would like it to become law, can you cite an example of or two where this actually happened in the state of Florida? And no Republican was able to give example for any of it. The narrative goes on to say, the bill's not for blacks. The bill was not for any other race. This was directed to make whites not feel bad about what happened years ago, said State Senator Chevron Jones, who is black. At no point did anyone say white people should be held responsible for what happened. But what I would ask my white counterparts is, are you an enabler of what happened? Or are you going to say we must talk about history? Now, let me be very clear, okay? There are more than just white people or white bigots who are enablers of this madness. You have other groups, you have other ethnicities who also will buy into this foolishness and say that, oh, critical race theory needs to be banned. Well, it's not even taught in K through 12 education. Now you're saying that employers cannot teach it to their staff. Well, once again, not a problem. But that's why the bill does not say critical race theory. This is a false pretext to create a context in order to do what they wanted to do in the first place. And that is to eliminate the acknowledgement of historical racism in the United States of America. That is it. That is their aim. That is their design. That is their plan. That is their play. Never forget why they're doing it. The bill reads in part, let me read part of this bill. It reads in part, an individual by virtue of his or her race or sex does not bear responsibility for actions committed in the past by other members of the same race or sex. An individual should not be made to feel discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any other form of psychological distress on account of his or her race. Now, I want to show you some irony here, okay? The state of Florida, they have not proposed a bill that would say, hey, it's illegal to say the N-word. It's illegal to make black people feel uncomfortable by white people hurling the N-word at them. It's no such bill. It's not even a bill to say, let's make it unlawful in the school system. No such bill. And I'm talking about teachers saying it to students. No such bill exists. You see, the discomfort that black people feel, well, there's a narrative that says we deserve to feel that discomfort. But literally, you have legislation being passed in the state of Florida that would make it illegal to make white people uncomfortable. That's the genesis of the bill. As noted by WFLA's Evan Donovan, Florida State Senator Joe Gruters has introduced legislation that would bar governmental entities from entering into agreements with professional sports teams. This is different, but along the same line. So there's this other bill that says if you don't play the United States national anthem at the start of each game, we will penalize you financially. We will no longer do business with you as a government. And let's show the picture of the guy who's sponsoring that bill. Here's the good senator out of Florida. That's Senator Joe. According to the report, teams that do not comply could face financial penalties or be cut from future business as punishment for their defiance. Now, these are the same people screaming that they are all about freedom, that they are all about choice, but they're not. They are about nationalism. All of these sentiments, all of these bills, all of this legislation points to one thing: nationalism in the United States of America. And we have to continue to cover it and not allow it to become normative. The day it becomes average news, the day we are not outraged by it is the day it's normal. We will not allow it to be normal here. Trae, what are your thoughts on this, brother? You see it for what it is.
Yeah, I mean, okay, first of all, on that first bill they've got, so I've got white children, shockingly, I got two of them. They're in school in Southern California, but they're from Tennessee. They were born in Tennessee. All of their family is still in Tennessee. They have been made aware that Tennessee was on the wrong side of history back then. People, slavery was in the South. People in Tennessee held, so they've learned all this stuff in school because these schools aren't ridiculous out here, right? And they've never come to me with any sort of inherent discomfort over that. Like they've never come to me and be like, does this mean that we're inherently evil? Like children don't interpret the truth that way in my experience. So I don't think that you really have to worry about their precious little sensibilities unless they're going home and their parents are then laying all of that on them because of how they feel about what's being taught at school. So it's all really about the adults and their own insecurities. I grew up in Tennessee. I never felt, I didn't lie awake at night thinking, does this mean that I'm in the Klan and I never knew it? Because right. Tennessee was bad. Like I never felt that way either. So if you do, it just says something about you and how you feel about all those things, in my opinion. So it's all just like stuff they're making up, and pulling out of nowhere. Speaking of which, the whole national anthem thing, like that's not real. They don't need that. They don't need that law. I feel like that's what state level Congress people do all the time because they need something. I feel like they don't really have all that much going on. I'm sure there's important issues they could be addressing, but they'd rather just make up some crazy bill to get their name in the headlines because you got to find some way to make a splash at that level or something. So like in Tennessee, they try to make the Holy Bible the official state book, like anybody, like we need a state book or like they've ever cared about books before, so they just look for things they can put their name on and they got to make these, controversies up out of thin air in order to have something. So
and listen, you hit the nail on the head. These are ridiculous bills, but dangerous because there was a time these bills would exist on the extreme side of the conservative party. Now they are part of the mainstream matrix of the conservative movement, and it makes all of these bills quite dangerous.